welcome to Western Pennsylvania. We grow in the area we grow in is Zone 6A that deals with what your low temperatures are. In this area, kind of a guideline is you can start planting your frost tender plants around Mother's Day, around mid-May. Sometimes you can't. Past 2 years, there's been snow flying on those days. So Memorial Day is a little bit safer of a day to plant in this area. But I brought up in one of my previous videos planting sweet potatoes in Western Pennsylvania. We had an absolutely fantastic harvest last year. And I was showing starting my sweet potatoes slips that I can plant. And these are very cold tender since it's more of a southern crop. So these aren't going to be going out in the garden until June. Sometimes it's almost Father's Day before these are planted. Now I started these from last year's sweet potatoes. And I'm going to show you, I have a range of starting. Like this one right here, the only thing I've got going is that little root there. And there's some roots down towards the bottom. They're working on it. And then these smaller ones, now this one here, we've got some of the plants are starting up here. I might need to get this part submersed. And there's a little guy coming along, that focus. So they're coming along slowly. This is the one that is doing the best. This is what I actually wished all the rest were doing. We have a ton of plants starting and a ton of roots coming down, which that's telling me things are looking exactly the way I want. Now when it's time to plant, eventually these are gonna be growing up. This is like the plant part, and I'm gonna have leaves. Then there'll be roots going down into the water. What I'll do is just break that off, the sweet potato, and that's my plant. Now I do harden these off the same as I would harden off any other plant. I do make sure they get some time outside in the actual sun and the actual wind before I'm planting them in the ground to get them acclimated. Now I have some really tiny little guys here. These were really little. I saved these with the intention of using them for to see if they would work to start the slips. And you can see there's some roots. I'll let it focus for me. Yep, right there by my finger, there's a root going down. There's several on these little ones. Now this water I change pretty regular. If it starts to look kind of cloudy, I just rinse the sweet potato off, rinse the jar out and change the water. So I do change that pretty regularly. And then this was an experiment. I purchased some organic sweet potatoes from the grocery store, and one of the ends was like one of these little finger guys that's kind of annoying to have to peel and try to do something with. So I just put some toothpicks in it and stuck it in here just to see if I could get anything started from a grocery store sweet potato. So far, nothing yet, but it hasn't been in this jar very long, maybe a week. These ones have been in for quite a while. And then last year I had read that you could just lay a sweet potato in a thin bed of soil where it's just like half in the soil and then half out. And that did great. It threw off a ton of roots. It threw off a ton of plants coming up. So I tried that this year. Both sweet potatoes that I tried that with just rotted. They didn't do anything, and I don't know why. So those got thrown out in the compost for the chickens. And then I took, again, just some of my like long, skinny sweet potatoes that I had from last year and put them in a pot. Now this took a little while, but we've got some plants started. So I'm hoping as we get further in the season, I can bring this out and these will be the same as the ones I showed you here, where the plant will be coming up, the roots will be going down, and I'll be able to pop the plants off the sweet potato and put them in the ground and have more sweet potatoes. And then here's one. This one's at a much more delayed state, and this is interesting to me. Like, those are coming up out of the soil. These are just coming out of the sweet potato. So there has to be roots down there in the soil somewhere that's feeding this. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work, but we're just going to let it play out. This one's not showing anything, but it's staying good and firm. And I went to kind of just shift it, and it's definitely in there. It's definitely, there's some roots or something happening that's holding it down in the soil. So again, I'm just going to leave that and we'll see what happens. We're just over a week from Mother's Day. And once we hit Mother's Day, if we've got a 10-day forecast that doesn't have anything in the 30s, that everything is up in the 40s, and maybe time to put some tomato plants out. My tomato plants are bursting at the seams. They are too tall to fit under my grow lights inside. And we've had some really cold days, so they've kind of had to sit next to the grow lights with only their bottom leaves, or the bottom 2/3 or so of them, getting sunlight or getting light from the grow lights. So they're outside now here under our grill shed. The bottom of some of our leaves, this guy here looks a little bit sad, especially his bottom leaves. And this is saying I've used up the nutrients that are in the soil you gave me. And I either need more soil, I need more nutrients, or I need out of this pot and into the garden. So at the moment, I've got some of Neptune's Harvest. Had this a while. Let's see, the label's pretty gone. I just put maybe a tablespoon in watering can. This is probably like 2.5 gallons. Less is more. You don't want to burn your plants. If you have to add a little bit more later, that's okay. If you don't want to over fertilize. So I'm going to, you can hear me over the sound of the hose. So I'm just going to water. I'm going to give all these trays some water with this little bit of fertilizer in it. I think the plants, not all of them, but the plants that are looking kind of yellow at the bottom, this will perk them up. And some of the other ones aren't as dark green. I'd like them to brighten up a little bit. So I think this is what they'll need between now and the time when the weather is going to allow us to put them out. Probably not going to be next weekend. It's rare that with a Mother's Day this early. The rule of thumb around here is Mother's Day is the day you can put your plants out. But Mother's Day is pretty stinking early this year. So I'm anticipating needing to wait a little bit. So they probably have at least another week or 2 or 3 left in their pots. This tray in particular looks a little sad. Some of the potting soil that I used was left over from last year. I think some of the nutrients had broken down in that particular pot. So this one here also is looking kind of sad. If you look at those bottom leaves, they're pretty yellow. So a few videos ago, I planted our onions out. Now it's been driving me a little bit crazy because I'm violating one of my principles, and I've got bare soil. I like to keep the soil covered. I like to keep it mulched for many, many reasons. It keeps the weeds down, it holds the moisture in, it protects the soil, and encourages your worms to come up and aerate your soil and poop in your soil, which is your fertilizer. So I just mowed for the first time. This year the spring's kind of delayed, so I just mowed for the first time, and we bag our clippings. Now, if my husband's mowing, he just stops. I grab the bags and I like spread it. Since he is on his way back from a business trip, I just lined the outside of the bed, just dumped them around the outside, and I'm going to work those to the inside. It never hurts to have a nice big thick pile of mulch along the border, because that helps to keep your weeds from coming in. So I'm just going to spread the mulch in between the rows. It does so much in preserving your sanity as a gardener, to have a nice deep or have mulch around your plants, just because it keeps your weeds down, it keeps your soil so much healthier, and it just cuts down on the amount of time and maintenance and things that you need to do in your garden.